Elena Morris was the perfect daughter, the smiling neighbor, the woman everyone in Willow Creek trusted, while her brother Daniel Morris was the only one who ever sensed something was wrong. It wasn't until he recorded a single horrifying video that the truth about Elena's double life was revealed, shattering the image of perfection and exposing the nightmare she had been hiding in plain sight. In Willow Creek, Elena Morris was the kind of person who seemed to embody everything good about the town. People described her as the perfect daughter, the perfect neighbor, the perfect friend. She lived in a modest white house with flowers always blooming in the garden, the kind of home people pointed to when they spoke of stability and warmth. Her widowed mother had leaned on her heavily after her father's passing, and Elena never once complained. She was the one who drove her mother to appointments, cooked every meal, and kept the house spotless. Everyone in the community admired her for her dedication and selflessness. At church events, Elena always volunteered to help with the children. She organized bake sales, ran charity raffles, and collected coats for families who couldn't afford them in the winter. She was the face people trusted when they needed a babysitter or someone to check in on an elderly parent. Teachers praised her patience, neighbors admired her politeness, and children adored her gentle presence. Her life appeared so ordinary, yet enviably stable. Behind her carefully built reputation, Elena knew how to play every role flawlessly. She never raised her voice, never showed anger in public, never gave anyone a reason to doubt her kindness. To outsiders, she was someone to look up to, but there was a silence around her that no one thought to question. She lived with her younger brother Daniel, who often described her as the glue that held their family together. To him, she seemed protective, sometimes overly so, but always caring. If anyone in Willow Creek had been asked who was the least likely to cause harm, Elena Morris's name would have been at the top of the list. Nobody suspected the secrets she was hiding. The peace of Willow Creek began to crumble when the first disappearance struck. A 16-year-old girl named Marissa failed to come home after an evening at a friend's house. Her bike was found abandoned on a quiet road just 2 blocks from her neighborhood, but there were no footprints, no signs of a struggle, and no witnesses. The town reeled with confusion, but many reassured themselves that she had perhaps run away, even though her family insisted otherwise. Months later, a young man named Kevin, who worked late shifts at the local diner, vanished on his walk home. His backpack was discovered in a ditch, zipped neatly, with nothing missing. His disappearance shattered the illusion that Marissa's case was isolated. People began locking their doors earlier, pulling their children off the streets, and whispering about whether a predator was lurking nearby. The unease deepened when a beloved teacher, Mrs. Carter, went missing during her evening jog. Her water bottle was found by the roadside, still cold, as if she had just dropped it. By then, the police were under immense pressure. They launched searches through the forests, dragged rivers, and interviewed every person who might have seen something. But every lead fell apart. Every trail went cold. The town of Willow Creek was small, and news traveled fast. Rumors spread through grocery stores, classrooms, and church pews. Some claimed there must be an outsider passing through. Others believed it was someone within the community. Despite the fear, no one ever considered Elena. She stood at candlelight vigils with tears in her eyes, holding photographs of the missing, comforting grieving parents. She looked like a pillar of strength, a symbol of hope in the middle of tragedy. No one realized that the danger stood among them. Daniel Morris had always believed his sister was the strongest person he knew. After their mother's death, Elena became his anchor, the one who kept the house running and made sure life felt stable. At first, he saw her as almost unshakable, a figure of comfort in their shared grief. But as months passed, Daniel began to notice things that unsettled him. Elena's routine seemed to change in strange, secretive ways. She would leave the house late at night, claiming she needed air, but return hours later with dirt smeared on her shoes or faint scratches on her arms. When he asked, she dismissed his concern with a soft laugh or a quick change of subject, leaving him uneasy but unwilling to press further. One part of the house began to gnaw at Daniel's curiosity, the basement. Elena kept it locked, saying it was only for storage, but the way she guarded that door made him suspicious. She carried the key with her at all times, even sleeping with it on a chain around her neck. Once, when he tried to open the door with a spare key, he found that she had changed the lock entirely. The most disturbing moment came late one night. As Daniel tried to sleep, he thought he heard faint noises drifting up through the floor. At first, he believed it was the wind or the pipes, but then he caught it again, low, muffled sounds, almost like crying. His heart pounded as he pressed his ear to the floorboards above the basement. It was unmistakable. Someone, or something, was down there. Still, he hesitated to believe the worst. This was Elena, the sister who had raised him, the woman everyone in town trusted. The thought that she might be hiding something sinister was almost too much to consider. But the unease refused to fade. Daniel's suspicions finally pushed him to act. One afternoon, while Elena was at work, he positioned his phone on a high shelf in the basement stairwell, angled just enough to capture whatever she might do when she went downstairs. He felt a surge of guilt as he hit record, telling himself he was invading her privacy, but the sounds he had heard at night wouldn't leave his mind. Hours later, after Elena returned home and went about her evening as usual, Daniel retrieved the phone with trembling hands. He locked himself in his room, turned the volume low, and pressed play. At first, the footage seemed ordinary. The screen showed Elena carrying a tray down the steps, balanced carefully in her hands. On it were plates of food and a glass of water. Daniel's stomach tightened as he watched her unlock the basement door with the key she guarded so closely. She paused briefly before opening it, glancing over her shoulder as though she feared being watched. The door swung wide, and the view into the room beyond made Daniel's blood run cold. A young woman sat against the wall, her wrists shackled, her face pale with exhaustion. She flinched as Elena approached, but Elena only set the tray down gently beside her. With unsettling tenderness, she brushed the captive's hair away from her face, almost like a mother tending to a child. Then, in a chilling moment, Elena began to hum softly, rocking slightly as if soothing the woman to sleep. When she finished, Elena locked the door again, her face blank and calm. Daniel froze as the video ended. The sister he had trusted all his life was living a secret no one could have imagined. He knew instantly that everything in their home, and everything about Elena, was not what it seemed. When Daniel finally handed the recording to the police, events moved quickly. Within hours, unmarked cars surrounded the Morris home. Officers forced open the locked basement door, weapons drawn, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. What they found confirmed every fear Daniel had carried. In the farthest corner of the basement, two women sat chained to the wall, their eyes wide with shock at the sudden intrusion. Both were alive, but weak, their bodies frail from months of captivity. Their discovery stunned the officers, who immediately called for medical assistance. The search went deeper. Boxes stacked against the walls contained more than household clutter. Inside were belongings that tied Elena to other missing people: wallets, watches, pieces of clothing carefully folded as if they were trophies. The officers moved methodically, documenting every detail, while upstairs Daniel waited in silence, unable to process what was happening beneath his feet. His home had been hiding a nightmare. Elena was arrested as soon as she returned that evening. Neighbors watched in disbelief as the woman they once described as gentle and dependable was let out in handcuffs. The news spread like wildfire, and soon every television and newspaper carried her story. The once beloved figure of the community was unmasked as a predator who had blended perfectly into ordinary life. In the courtroom, Elena remained eerily calm. Survivors testified about their ordeals, describing the months of fear, manipulation, and false kindness. Some said she treated them like pets, others that she shifted between cruelty and tenderness without warning. The community sat in stunned silence as the picture of Elena's double life grew clearer. The woman they had trusted with their children, who had comforted grieving families, was revealed as the source of their pain. The illusion of the perfect daughter was destroyed forever. Elena Morris was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, her crimes deemed too calculated and cruel to ever risk her release. The courtroom was heavy with silence as the verdict was read, survivors clutching each other while neighbors sat stunned, unable to reconcile the woman they once admired with the monster she had been revealed to be. For many, it felt like waking from a nightmare only to discover that the shadows had always been real. Willow Creek, once known for its quiet streets and strong sense of community, now carried a reputation scarred by horror. In the months that followed, the town struggled to heal. Parents no longer let their children walk home alone. Strangers eyed each other with suspicion, and conversations often circled back to Elena's deception. How could someone so trusted, so visible, carry out such atrocities in plain sight? The question lingered, unanswered, in every corner of Willow Creek. Vigils were replaced by memorials, and the victims' families worked tirelessly to rebuild their lives while the community wrestled with the unsettling truth. Evil had lived among them, wearing the face of kindness. For Daniel, the ordeal left an unshakable mark. He had saved lives by showing the video, yet he carried the unbearable weight of being the one who exposed his sister. The guilt gnawed at him, a painful reminder that the person who raised him, who once felt like his only family, was also the source of unspeakable cruelty. Each day, he replayed the choices he made, wondering if he could have acted sooner. Elena's story became more than just a local tragedy. It was studied, reported, and retold as a chilling reminder. Sometimes the people we trust most are the ones hiding the darkest secrets. Nobody had suspected her until the truth was captured on video.